A land of innocence has no need for gods. Until fate intervenes.
Keep away from the water!
Stop!
When people pray, a god is always born.
Help! Someone help
our
us!
child!
We call
Please,
to the
hear
heavens!
us!
Able to change eternity. That god is you.
Well, let me tell you the first game rule. The first game rule is you are a god, and as such, you can do anything you like. You might need to teach these fellas a lesson. You know, I don't want them to be cheeky to me. And just destroy as many of these little suckers as I possibly could. And be nice to people, you don't have to be nasty. It is cool being nasty.
Time to get violent, pal!
Are you a blessing or a curse? Good or evil? Be what you will, you are destiny.
He will actually get fatter. Fatter and fatter.
Hello everyone. You might wonder who this handsome devil is on the screen. And it's Peter. And Peter is not as well known as he once was. And some people like to talk a little bit of shit about him. He certainly has a big mouth and he likes to promise things. But to me, I will always have a soft spot in my heart for Peter and his company Lionhead Studios, because they produced most of the games that really defined my childhood. And one of the big ones was Black and White. Both for Black and White and its sequel, Black and White 2. I was truly on board the hype train. I remember walking around and talking to my friends about how in Black and White 2 you could do everything. It turned out, however, that you couldn't do anything, and today you can't even buy the Black and White games. They can't be found digitally, and the physical copies don't work anymore on newer operating systems. They are not alone in this, of course. Bunch of older games no longer work due to DRMs like safedish and Securom. You can get around them, but not without exposing your system to security risk or potentially installing malware or hell, buying it once more, giving money to the people who screwed you over. In the case of Black and White, you can't of course buy it. I am not sure if it's Microsoft or Electronic Arts or if it's due to Lionhead being dead. Who knows? I am sure that there are ways to get a hold of the games if you don't have a physical copy, and I found some fan patches to fix the problems. I assume it's no CD in the background either way, so use it on your own risk of course, but at least it makes you feel a little bit less dirty when using it. This fan patch has worked really well for me, and I am very happy about that, but still I think it's important to remember that most game companies have no interest whatsoever in supporting older games, not even when it's their own DRMs that screw things over. And I think you should keep that in mind when you pay a lot of money for newer games.
Yeah, at least I learned something from all this.
What's that?
Never pay more than $20 for a computer game.
Well, enough whining for the moment. What is this game actually about? Well, it's a god simulator. You play as a god in this fantasy world, and your objective is to make people believe in you. And you can do this by healing the sick or throwing fireballs on children. That's up to you. Perhaps the biggest choice in the game, however, is how you decide to raise your divine creature. You are given at the start of the game a divine creature, and throughout the game you are able to raise him, and whenever he does anything you can either punish him or reward him. You can tell him to eat your followers or eat wheat. You can tell him to catch wood or throw fireballs at enemies. And not only that, he will also see what you do as a god, and he will adapt to that and try to do as you do. And at the end of the game, his visual appearance will reflect his and perhaps indirectly your actions. And he can either be a light-hearted good white creature or a evil bloodthirsty beast.
Now clearly the creature that I'm developing is going to be a hard bastard. He's not going to be someone you mess with, and so he's going to be a little bit evil. So he will slowly change and morph to become more evil and vicious looking. Or if you decided to make him nice and caring, he'll change and morph and become more good and godly looking.
Even today, almost 20 years later, I still think the idea behind Black and White is pretty cool. And not only that, it's very apparent that everything is formed around this core idea. And in my opinion, this has always been the big strength of Lionhead Studios. They are very good at taking these big, high concept ideas and centering the game and gameplay around them. And at the very least, the games become very interesting, even though sometimes the gameplay can be a bit shaky because of this. In the case of Black and White, you have this cool, high concept idea of the game being a god simulator. And this basically translates into a sandbox. So you have this world that you can interact with, mostly in physics-based ways. So you can set things on fire, you can pick things up and throw them. It may be villagers, it may be rocks, and if you destroy a house it will fall apart into different pieces. And even though it certainly looks cool today, it was certainly more impressive when the game came out. And the game also have a lot of other cool ideas. We have the big one, which is the creature, and that it should reflect your actions and stuff like that. But it doesn't stop there. Depending on your alignment, the whole world will change. The length of the day and night cycle will differ depending on your alignment. I think that's really cool. And the idea that you can zoom in and out all the way close, very close to a villager, and then zoom way back and see the entire island. I mean, that's really cool.
So if you have a look in that storage pit, you can just see here there is a barrel. And on that barrel is a little apple. And in that apple you can just see there is a worm. And I can go from looking at this worm and pull back and actually look at the whole village, obviously, and even go further back and look at the whole world. And as you see, there is very, very little in the change of the frame rate of the game.
Another thing that they tried was to do away with all interfaces. And I think it's a cool idea, but they went a bit overboard, perhaps.
And the last game that I did, and probably the game I made the biggest mistakes over, was a game called Dungeon Keeper. But it was just an awful interface. I mean, the icons, there were tons of them. For a start, you'll notice that it is completely free of icons. The only thing that in the game is this hand. This hand enables you to move around freely. We've tried to do away with the keyboard completely. I can move around with in the world just by clicking and pulling the world around.
Let's face it, the hand gestures that you do to trigger your miracles doesn't work all that well. It's not very reliable. and when building your villages, placing these scaffolding boxes with your hand and waiting for them to turn in the right direction. It didn't work all that well in the first one. Black and White may have a lot of really cool high concept ideas, and in many ways it's a very charming game, with everything from the music, the side missions, to your two minions representing your conscience. But at the end of the day, a sandbox is cool and fun, but you get bored of it after a while, and you need to have some cool, good core gameplay in the background. And this is where Black and White falters. So what do you actually do in the game after you get bored of the sandbox, so to say? You can only throw so many villagers and rocks around until you start to wonder, what am I supposed to do? Well, you are playing on these islands, and there are some cities that believe in you and some cities that don't. And you can only interact in the area centered around the cities that believe in you. And you need to expand your influence by making other cities believe in you. And how do you do that? Well, you can throw rocks at them, you can throw fireballs at them, you can throw miracles at them, or you can throw them around. And it was a lot of throwing in those sentences, and that is because that is what you do. You try to either expand your influence of your own cities by expanding your city, and when you get close enough to the cities, you can start either killing them or healing them or giving them food, wood, or whatever they desire, and then they will start to believe in you. And it's not very interesting, it's very repetitive, and it takes a lot of time. And this might be okay if the city building was better, but the city building is extremely bare bones and not very fun. And you can expand and expand your cities, but it's just by spamming the same buildings over and over again. And it takes so much wood to build the most basic buildings, and you just find yourself spamming the wood miracle over and over and over again, and it's just not very fun after a while. The truth is that I never completed the first Black and White as a child, and I thought that I would push myself to do it, but I found myself pretty bored at the third island, and then I got some crashes, and I won't complete it this time either. And that is because when you grow bored of the charm and the sandbox activities, the core gameplay is, in my opinion, just not fun enough to carry the game. The game is still very charming and quite interesting, and I would recommend you trying it out if you can get a hold of it and you haven't tried it before. But it is a flawed experience, and in many ways quite a limited one, despite its cool ideas. But in my opinion, we have so many quite generic and a little bit boring games coming out that I think that I would rather play the interesting high concept game than the generic science fiction looter shooter number 57 of the week.
And what Black and White doesn't do is say, thou shalt be good, thou shalt be evil, thou shalt be this character, thou shalt be that character. It allows you to be whichever character you like.
This notion that we quite like to sail the ocean, so we're building a big boat to leave here for good. We're not keen on sinking, so we're all sitting here thinking, 'cause we built it too big and we've run out of wood. Idly, we simply can't leave till we get some more wood. Keen on sinking, so that's why we're sitting thinking, 'cause we simply can't leave till we get some more wood.
How dare they leave after all we've done for them?
What have we done for them exactly? Perhaps we should help them out. It might be nice.